Welcome back to the class, everyone. Today we're going to be taking another look at Ben Solo. When Ben Solo first came out, we did a crash course on him, kind of explaining our thoughts on what comps he was going to be in, if he was going to be any good, what Omicrons might be good or bad, how the modding was going to work. And now it's been several months. We've collected enough data, both in 3v3 and 5v5. We have a good idea of how much Ben is actually making an impact and what are the things that are causing those impacts, and also how can we now build solutions for said impact. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing we do need to address, and this is something that I don't really think we got neither right nor wrong, just it's out there, is what is his viability? Has he actually changed a lot of matchups? I think there has been a little bit of, I'm not sure if negativity is the right word, or just general apathy towards Ben, because one of the main counters to Rey in both 3v3 and 5v5, which is Star Killer, still kind of works. That being said, if we pull out how well he is doing as an overall defensive squad, we're currently in 3-3 right now, it's the best squad, and by like a pretty good margin. They have a 44% hold rate with Hoda, as well as a 37% hold rate with JTR. This is the highest defensive rating in the game right now for 3v3, and they don't even have a specific datacron for Losufus or for resistance. Granted, Hellsteel is pretty nice on them, and that is currently in one of the sets, but if that's really all it takes to put them at the top, that's very good. And I do want to look at this in its context, because we can look at this and honestly, this might just be Rey. Like, Ben might not be actually making that big of an impact, but if we pull up the battles from two seasons ago and see where Rey ranks, she is significantly lower, and her hold rate is also significantly lower. The most held Rey in this grouping with this amount of teams that were used is 27%, and she's being beaten out by a lot of teams. Granted, we have to remember the datacrons that were active during this time. That's why Lord Vader is at 57%, because this was right at the heart of the Dodgecron. But still, the improvement that we've seen on Rey in with and without Ben Solo is pretty large. And even in 5v5, the change isn't as huge, but it's still there. In this last 5v5 season, they had a hold rate of 30% with the most common comp there, as well as in the 2 seasons before in 5v5, so this is actually several months ago now, it only had a 24% hold rate. So the Rey team is getting better in 3v3, I would say, by quite a bit, and we can talk a little bit more about why that is. As well, in 5v5, it's getting a little bit better. So I'm going to answer the question right now. If you have Rey, Ben Solo is a must. And that's really what we're going to come down to. We're going to look a little bit about what he needs for comps first before we actually go into what is the best Omicron, or what's the worst Omicron, which I think is probably a better way to word it. But when we originally reviewed Ben, we talked about how he's going to probably be pretty good in a Rey team. He's going to be okay-ish in a JTR team, and then he might be even okay-ish in a Star Killer team. And I currently sit with the opinion, if you don't have Rey, don't bother. He is an amazing character. We looked at the statistics of what he's doing, what he's changing in our team, but we've seen him both the JTR and the Star Killer team. He's okay. He's filler. He'll do kind of the things that an R2 would do to JTR, or that rather JTR would do to Star Killer, not making huge differences, not changing counters, not just completely revolutionizing the team. There might be a few niche things that are happening here and there, depending on how you work it, but as a general whole, he's not doing much. So this is really relevant right now because we just finished the Scythe Conquest, which is the one directly after Solo. So now, if you want Ben Solo shards, you have to buy them with crystals or with conquest currency straight out of the shop. And if you have Rey, I really encourage you to do it. He's an amazing character. Again, he will make that team significantly better. If you don't have Rey, put your resources elsewhere. Slow farming through proving grounds or whatever you need, that's fine. But overall, he really needs to be in one of these Rey comps to actually make the difference. And that has a lot to do with how his kit works, and really is unique in keeping Rey alive as much as possible. So that being said, while we're talking about comps, let's go into that further. I think the best overall comp is going to be with Hermit Yoda. And the reason is, one of the really annoying things about Ben, even without an Omicron, is the fact that he cannot be defeated until Rey is under 50% health, and Rey can also not be defeated while he's active. So you get into this really nasty loop where you have to constantly be hitting one of them under 50 to kill the other one, And if they keep healing and both of them are consistently over that 50% health, they just never die. And that's where Hoda comes in handy here, because every single turn he's been able to do 10% health and 5% protection to all of his allies. And then he also has his Master Strain, which is more offense to Ray, which is even better, as well as equalizing health, which will really, again, pump everyone up above that 50% line. So he's probably overall the best bet. This isn't in the statistics because it's really not that popular of a team, because a lot of people don't have Sortie built. But there is a very interesting and very fun mechanic with Sortie in here, where she will give the weakest other ally VIP. And since Ray's a Galactic Legend, it's going to be Ben Solo. It's going to be the weakest. And he's going to get this essentially whenever they're hit, they gain stealth for 2 turns. And it makes that interaction even more annoying, because you can't, once you get Ray down to 50% health, you can't kill Ben because he's constantly stealthed. And then you just get stuck on Ray and you can't kill her because you can't kill Ben. So adds another layer of complexity. There are some really neat things in Sortie's kit as well with this, because she actually has a cleanse as well that will go to the weakest ally. So doesn't have to be droid, doesn't have to be Old Republic, doesn't have to be anything. She'll just cleanse Ben. So if they do land buff immunity or shock or whatever, you have a one way out of it that is pretty nice. The other comp for 5v5, this one's pretty straightforward, and we're just going to call it too many distractions. And there's probably other ways to do this team, and especially with Datacrons, I think are going to affect this a lot, because Rey's synergy, if you look at her kit, there is absolutely no mention of resistance, or even Lasufu for that matter. She is 100% a light side GL. So I think this comp is going to change pretty much every single time we get a light side Datacron that can be smushed into her, especially in the end game, as we're really looking for quality of teams over quantity of teams. But just in general, even like right now when there's no really good Datacron to go with Raid, this is pretty much the most annoying comp. You have 2 forms of healing immunity here, especially theirs that are a locked healing immunity, as well as having to do with the inspired bros. If you don't take care of them or focus on them, you also have a different slew of problems with counterattacks and whatnot. It just becomes a lot to handle for a lot of teams, and it's, again, still beatable. These teams aren't immortal, but they make for the most problematic teams for the most part. And with that being said, we do need to look at, and we mentioned it previously with the healing immunity, how much Ben is actually impactful on these teams and what he needs to get there. So one of the things we got wrong when we originally reviewed his kit was we were like, he's an attacker. He really probably needs to be R7 and be loaded with a lot of offense, which is actually what I did with both of them. Those were still my 2 choices. You can see that by these offense mods that were here. They're fairly decent. I think we have offense on the cross. We have offense actually on his arrow. That's a good arrow. As well as offense on his triangle, just because he deals a lot of raw offense and he deals a lot of true damage, and that offense can help. I don't think this is as crucial as it was before, nor do I think the R7 was as crucial as it was before. Really, what we're going after here is Ben's functional abilities that he has in his kit, and not his raw DPS. Rey still has a ton of damage, either through her whirlwinds as well as through her ultimate. And at the end of the day, really, Ben is there for 2 reasons, and I guess this is kind of a nice little segue here. His Omicrons. Ben's Omicrons are amazing, and I will go as far to say that out of every single character in the game right now, he has the most important second Omicron. It's the only character that I have in the entire game that has more than 1 Omicron, and he has 2. And you can see what they are right here pretty clearly. And that is going to be, number 1, the Force Dyad. And we really actually talked this one up quite a bit in our first crash course on it, where you want to have the constant reviving whenever the enemy leader takes a turn. This essentially in 3v3 kills JML. It is very, very difficult to constantly be killing Ben when JML is taking twice as many turns as both of his sides are. It is still possible to do, but the win rates drops from something like 70 to 80 all the way down to like 30, 40. It really hurt that counter. Not to mention, it also makes it a little harder in 5s. 5 is a little bit more manageable because you have more allies. You don't have to rely that much on the leader. It even just makes cleanups a lot harder too if you're trying to do geos or something like that and both the 2 of them are still around. It's not fun. Definitely changes the board, and as well as obscured. While in Grand Arena, when this ability is used, Ben Solo's cooldowns reduced by 1. If Galactic Legend Rey is in the allied leader slot, which he should be, this tag instead deals true damage and inflicts healing immunity for 4 turns, which can't be copied, dispelled, evaded, or resisted. This effectively completely shuts C down, or at least any normal C comp that was currently being used with like C-Watt or C-Watt armor or something like that. The second he lands this, and then C takes a whirlwind or an ult or something else back to back, he just can't take it because it can no longer recover his protection. In 4 turns, is a very long time. You don't have to, but you can also group this together with JTR's healing immunity, and you can just pretty much make it so that he never actually gets out of the healing immunity. Because this only has a 4-turn cooldown, and when he uses this, he reduces that by 1, so it's really a 3-turn cooldown. So even if the Galactic Legend is very fast, I was going up against one actually earlier today in JC with my Lord Vader, and we'll talk about that in a second. He was almost able to completely loop the healing immunity, which is very bad. If it weren't for Lord Vader's ultimate, which Lord Vader is a very good solution to this, he would have been able to loop it, and Rey would have just outright destroyed us. And again, that's a reality for a lot of other comps. One of the other annoying things about this, and again, I was using JML and 5s actually versus the Rey comp, he can ignore taunt without an Omicron, that's a Zeta, and then he just goes in and he hits my Jolie with the healing immunity, and now my Jolie can't heal before the next big Rey's ult, and he dies. Not fun. So yeah, overall, 2 really important Omicrons. I'm really not sold on this one either, or at all. Ben Solo's attacks ignore protection for the same reason that we originally talked about in the original Crash Course. At the end of the day, Rey has a ton of damage, and if she's having to beat through someone's protection anyway to be able to kill them, Ben, unfortunately, just doesn't have the damage to be able to one-shot characters below protection from just bare health. I have heard of it happening once. I've never really seen it. And again, we have ours decked out pretty much to the teeth with offense as much as he can have. And on top of that, he's Relic 7, but the damage really just isn't there. I think you're better off getting him to Relic 5 so that he can be used with Datacrons, putting some decent health. You can have some still offense or crit damage or whatever you want on him. It doesn't hurt him. I just don't think it was as necessary as it was before. So, going over his relic levels, going over which Omicrons he needs, what team comps he wants to be in. We've seen that he, currently in this 3v3 season, and probably in the next one, he's the biggest menace out there. What are the solutions? What are the easiest ways to beat him that are going to least affect what we have going on? So we talked about JML and C now having a few more issues. The 2 best solutions that I found are going to be Lord Vader and Starkiller. Lord Vader right now, as it is, we don't have this confirmed. But Traya, we don't know if she's going to get a nerf or not. But as it currently stands, Traya does really well versus Lord Vader in 3v3s. The counter isn't 100%. It's still working out some kinks. It is a little bit Datacron dependent, and you can't just do it. Not every single player with every single Traya is going to be able to do it, but it is very active. Everyone who's tried against mine has succeeded. So because of that, I've started pulling Lord Vader, and he will just straight up solo Rey and Ben. A part of that right now is because of the protection up Datacron that he has, but even after that, you can easily throw a Desufu in the team, like Fifth Brother or an Inquisitor, something that you're not using, maybe even OG Kylo, which is a better option, as well as Royal Guard, and that will significantly reduce the opponent's damage, and you'll just be able to kill them very easily. So taking Lord Vader off defense, since he's much less of a menace, especially again because he doesn't have his active Datacron where he was getting to use AoE 16,000 times, he's a great solution to this, especially if your opponent is typically beating with Traya. The other solution is Starkiller. I don't like this one as much because I have a lot of fun Starkiller comps that I like to run on defense. A lot of people don't like it because GG can beat most of them. But that being said, these 3 core in 3v3 and in 5v5 are still beating Reylo, especially just because Starkiller is your main damage dealer here. And I've seen so many battles where Rey will Whirlwind Emperor Palpatine, and the second that the enemy leader dies, being Palpatine, Ben Solo no longer gets to revive. So Starkiller just has so much splash damage as well as the AoEs from Mara that the whole really annoying combo of bouncing back and forth constantly with their health going up just doesn't really become that much of a factor. Not to mention there's shock in there that prevents healing as well. So overall, those are the 2 best counters to this right now. There are different variations through 3v3 and 5v5, and Datacrons will change that. But overall, this is probably the really best value, and this is what we're doing with Ben. Overall, I'm very excited for him, or I've been very content and happy with him as a Conquest character. I know that he has had a little bit of mixed reviews again because of what is able to beat him and what isn't. But that is pretty much going to be it for today. Let us know your thoughts on him in general, or if we got something wrong or something we forgot to add in. But until next time, guys, stay awesome.